Welcome back, and we're starting with good news. My 41mm socket has turned up, which means I can take my rear wheel eccentric hub adjustery thing apart. I will admit this is not quite as exciting as the day I got my electric impact gun, which was just a moment in time I won't forget. But under current circumstances, it's a pretty good thing. So this afternoon I'm going to crack on, take some stuff apart. Over the last couple of days I've had to use the bench for something else, so I've put the back wheel back in, so all I will do first is I shall remove the big nut, take the wheel out. I shall then adjust the bike onto a set of axle stands underneath the frame rails so that the swinging arm is all completely free and I don't need this, because this paddock stand is in the way of me getting that big nut off, which is pretty important, because we can't do anything else with that nut in. So what we're going to do is we're going to do all those bits, then crack off these adjuster nuts, slacken the chain off, take the paddock stand out of the way, take the big nut off, and then all the brake disc and hub and bits can disappear out of that side of the swinging arm. Obviously I'm going to take the brake caliper off again. I had it off the other day for cleaning, but now we're going to take it back off again. I didn't put it back on particularly tight. So that's the plan. Just got the bike up on its stands and taken the back wheel out. I've taken the little clip off that retains the 41mm nut that I need to take off, and as soon as I put the impact gun on it, the nut nearly fell off. It was not tight. And these are meant to be well over 100 Newton meters torque. So what I'm assuming is when the chain and sprockets was changed, that nut was not done up tight, which is a little bit of a concern, being as that holds all the brake and the wheel and everything in place. So hopefully it's not done any damage underneath. Yes, this nut, not tight, and it should be tight. That is the rear axle and disc assembly removed from the hub. Little bit of dirt around everything. The bearings feel very nice and smooth, there's no play in anything, so I'm not going to strip the bearings out of it because that just potentially leads to more problems. I'm just going to grease everything up and then torque everything properly again. I am rather tempted to take the eccentric adjuster off and clean up some of these edges with a file, because as normal, even though this bike actually has the original toolkit with it, the big C-spanner for adjusting that sort of hooks around here and adjusts the eccentric isn't there, so it's been hit with hammers and bits over the years, so I'm just going to take that off and clean it all up a little bit. Actually, to be fair, I'll admit I had to use a hammer and a punch as well, because my C-spanner doesn't fit it either. So I will admit, not the nicest thing, but, you know, needs must. With a little help from a couple of friends over there, I've taken the entire hub out of the swinging arm, as you can now see. So I can put it on the bench and clean up all the edges where they've been hit with hammers before, clean it up, re-grease it, and then slip it all back together. That's the hub all cleaned up, the teeth filed so that they're actually the right width and have a reasonable edge on them so that we can get a C-spanner on when required. That's all of that bit done. I've given it a bit of a clean everywhere. I've given everything else a bit of a clean. And now it's just a case of popping it all back together with a bit of grease on everything. So I've got the hub all back in, and this time I have it in the lower half of the swinging arm because, according to my workshop manual, which I have on my Kindle, during this operation, wheel axis should remain below eccentric hub axis. So we now have the wheel axis below the centre line of the hub axis. so the geometry of the bike should be better. And now I've got to do chain tension. Because the hub's all nice and greased up and easy to move, I can actually do it with one of my not very brilliant fitting C-spanners. Now, because I've got it slightly at a different angle because I've not got the normal shock in it, the 25mm measurement for that is going to be wrong. So what I'm going to do is remove this rod, and then I can move the swinging arm through its whole range of movement and make sure the chain doesn't go tight at any point. Now that I'm happy with my chain adjustment, I can move on to the wheel side. I've put a little dab of copper slip on each one of the dowels and a little bit on the thread there just so nothing seizes up later. I'm just going to nip these up. They're not actually supposed to be especially tight. In the manual I think it's 28 to 32 Newton meters, so I shall probably do them to 30. We don't want to go stressing anything out and breaking anything. And this nut, what am I pointing at those for? This nut, I've just nipped it up for now with the electric impact gun. And then when I've got the bike on the floor and I can actually hold the back brake on, I will torque it correctly. As the old rear hugger had been cut down to miss the wheel that was in the wrong place, now that we have the wheel in the right place, this other hugger that I've found recently is fitted and there is clearance everywhere. So that is an improvement. A lovely piece of carbon fibre, because it's not fake. Now all the back end's back together. That's all I'm going to do for today, but I have recorded a couple of extra little bits of vinyl fun for you to look at now. So, back to faux carbon. The whole point of carbon fibre is it's structural and it's light. So, brilliant for building things out of that then replace another item. Putting carbon on top of something else, all it does is add weight, which is defeating the point of carbon, and putting something that isn't even carbon on something, just no, don't do it. What should be a relatively straightforward job is changing the air filters, because what you do is you split these in half and the filters are just sort of inside there. So I've got some new Pipe Across air filters from B&C Express. We'll swap those over and probably peel off that horrible carbon while we're there. So I've got the air tubes, first air tube apart. As you can see, there's two halves just come apart. Then that's our air filter. A little bit of dirt on it, but actually not too bad. But I've got these lovely new Pipe Across ones, which are reusable, rewashable. So I'm going to change those anyway. While we've got everything apart though, I've got my heat gun out, and I'm going to get all this cheap fake carbon nonsense off them. So it's easier to warm them up, makes the adhesive go soft, and they should hopefully peel off without too much hassle. As you can see, there's a bit of adhesive left on there, so I'm going to attack that with a bit of brake cleaner, and that should take the adhesive off fairly well, and then a bit of silicone and pop them back together. That's the first air tube stripped, cleaned, and a new Pipe Across filter fitted. Personally, I think it looks 1,000 times better. So now I've just got to do the second one. As well as the air tubes being covered in fake carbon fibre, the V-piece that sits in the front of the fairing's also being covered in black vinyl. And again, it's not terribly good. It's probably covering up a few stone chips and bits. But I'm going to peel it off anyway. If it's horrible underneath, well, we'll worry about that when we get to it. Well, I was expecting to find stone-chipped yellow. What we've actually found is potentially the worst paint I've ever seen on a motorcycle. They say it's all about preparation when you're doing paint. It's probably fairly accurate, because yeah, I doubt that was prepared particularly well, and as a result, yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. I suppose it could be worse. Somehow. My point of rantingness. Real carbon to replace, say, these heel plate. Excellent idea, because it's lighter, it looks good, doesn't scratch as easily. It's replaced it, it's saved weight. Also, this exhaust guard in carbon, perfectly good thing to do with it. But what I noticed when I bought the bike is this hole had a bolt in, but the other one didn't line up properly. So I decided to take it off and ta-da! So I think the first job we'll do is we'll make a new aluminium bracket so that we can get both bolts in and it'll make me happier. So I've removed the piece of aluminium that was used to mount the exhaust cover, and I've done a bit of checking. Now this cover is actually supposed to sit down here, about there, and just sit there. But this has got a slightly different exhaust arrangement on it. There were 3 different types, and some of them didn't have these mounting points. So this bike is supposed to have a mount that covers all of this and comes up over here. But we don't have that, so what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to remake the aluminium bracket and mount it as best I can with a bolt in the bottom and see if I can tolerate it. That's the exhaust heat shield refitted. I've made sure there's a clearance all the way around the edges so it doesn't burn when the bike's running. Got 2 bolts in it this time. Yeah, it's looking a bit better. Join us again next time, when hopefully we'll have some parts and we can actually put some stuff back together. Just not sure when that'll be.